because he's in that team alongside Lucas di Grassi, and he says, "Look, I'm not as experienced as Lucas. Lucas is an incredibly quick driver, so I'm here to learn off him."
Yeah, we're going to see that up and down the paddock in different teams. The experienced guys are going to be teaching the younger drivers some stuff, but younger drivers tend to adapt quicker too. So there's going to be that constant to-in and throw-in, and we've got a really good mix of drivers in this field.
Sam Bird there, one of the Virgin drivers alongside Jaime Alguersuari. He looked pretty quick in free practice one. He set the third quickest time, a 1 minute 42.9, which was a second slower than our quickest time, which was Lucas di Grassi, who set a 1 minute 41.937. This is Ho Pin Tung, the Team China cars and the Apt cars in a similarly liveried machines, especially now Apt have got yellow at the back of their cars through a Brazilian sponsorship deal. But there's Ho Pin Tung, the home hero here in China, and China Racing, run by Stephen Liu. They've been a part of motorsport since 2004 when they first entered the A1 GP series. There is Jaime Alguersuari, teammate to Sam Bird at Virgin Racing, a former British Formula 3 champion, the youngest ever Formula 1 racer, Jaime Alguersuari, when he made his debut at the 2009 Hungarian Grand Prix. And again, he never quite got the brakes, or was never quite prepared enough for the brakes he got in Formula 1.
He was really young when he started, wasn't he? And that's something I think Verstappen's going to maybe see next year too. It's always a very much a tightrope on how early you bring a driver up into F1.
Experienced driver there, Takuma Sato, raced with the likes of Jordan and BAR in Formula races over in the States in IndyCar. And out of the pits goes Stefan Sarazan with gusto as we go green here in Beijing for the second free practice session. The cars winding their way out onto the circuit. As we go through the session, we'll try and explain to you which cars are which drivers are which, so we can start to get some sort of recognition up, because it's the first time that we have seen them out on circuit properly. They did a shakedown yesterday, but they're all going to be out on track straight away, because these last 30 minutes could be crucial as we look at Ho Pin Tung.
Yeah, one thing we're going to see here though is guys who will be on fast laps, and drivers who will be sort of going pretty slowly, trying to conserve the energy of the battery. So you really got to watch for that, and traffic in practice particularly is going to be really, really heavy.
So the cars head out onto the track. There's Catherine Legg in the Amlin Aguri car, and that is the team that originally began as Super Aguri, but Amlin, a British insurance company, came on board and they've renamed themselves, and that's Catherine Legg and Takuma Sato who are going to be driving that car. But at the top of the team, it's still Aguri Suzuki is the owner. We've still got Mark Preston and Peter McCall essentially running the operation, so it's very similar to the Super Aguri squad that ran in Formula 1 back in the mid-2000s, and Catherine Legg is one of our two female racers. There's the other Amlin Aguri car, Takuma Sato, different helmet, and also the yellow on the roll hoop is the way you can differentiate him from Catherine Legg when the cars head out onto the track. As we go on board now with Jaime Alguersuari, winding his way through one of the chicanes, and let's have a little look as he sort of cruises round on his outlap. This is up at turn 6, I think, and this will then take him out onto Stadium Road. And these are two chicanes now on this back stretch. He's up behind his teammate.
Just watch this next bit here. You're going to see the car gets a jump coming up here in a second, just as they brake for turn 10. Watch how narrow it gets here on the exit. This is quite something. Fairly long straight here, and then braking into turn 14. Quicker corner than you think, opens up quite nicely on exit for the longest straight of the track up to the turn 16 chicane.
And here now, coming through the final corner, is the Dragon car of Jerome D'Ambrosio coming across the start-finish line, and he's going to be the first man to go across and set a proper lap time as he comes down into the first corner. Doesn't look like he's particularly high on the power at the moment as he comes around now into turn 2, the left-hander that takes him out on Tianchen West Road. Got the running clock watching him. The quickest time we saw so far today was a 1 minute 41.9.
What we're seeing is teams are using one car for qualifying preparation and the other car for race preparation, and the difference when they're running full power is actually quite marked. Visually we will see it, and you hear it a little bit too, so you will see that. It's quite a difference. One thing they're struggling with here too is actually differentiating where's the chicane, because there's no marks, there's no styrofoam blocks to show you where to go, so the guys are struggling a little bit to sort of pinpoint their braking points and their turning points.
Jerome D'Ambrosio heads now out into the thin section of circuit on the run between turn 13 and 14, where we then turn left off the National Stadium Road and on to Hujing Road, where the circuit starts to wind a little bit. It'll all be flat out, no problem, down towards the Huichong chicane. But nevertheless, it's quite a pleasing looking part of the circuit as they then come into the chicane, which is a little wider on the exit than some of the others. Interesting to see if we haven't had anyone misjudge it just there so far, but we've only had 45 minutes of running so far, so it really is a challenge for these drivers to get up to speed. Just to clarify the different power settings they have. In qualifying, they'll have 200, which is equivalent to 270 brake horsepower, but in the race they'll only have 150 kilowatts of power, which is 200 brake horsepower, and they can manage their settings in the race from 150 downwards. There will also be the fan boost, where the winners of the fan boost will get an extra 5 seconds of an extra 30 kilowatts of power. So there's all sorts of different power mappings at play, but of course in most forms of motorsport, in qualifying, the cars are quicker than in the race.
Oh, of course, and any type of racing now is about managing the power you have, whether that's fuel or whether, you know, in this case the battery power. So it's the same thing going on. It's just there'll be because this is all new. We're going to be discussing it, I would say, quite a lot more.
On board we go with Ho Pin Tung as he comes through the bus stop chicane, now up towards turn 14. Braking for the left-hander. Gets the car turned in. Really, you can hear the tyres working so much as they really hit the curbs hard on the inside.
He's breathing quite hard there already.
Now down towards the Huichong chicane. Under braking, he's well down on the quickest time so far, which has been set by Nick Heidfeld in the Venturi car, a 42.7, which is actually a pretty impressive time. That would have been in third quickest in the first free practice session. So, big lock up on the front left from Ho Pin Tung. Just about deals with it.
Just about. That was close on the exit wall there.
And now he's coming down towards the final corner.
Car gets a little airborne there just before braking.
Looks like someone has had a lock up there previous time around, because there was an awful lot of smoke going on. It looks as though it might have been Sebastian Buemi who locked up there before, but Ho Pin Tung comes across the line to go fourth quickest, a 1:45.002. Still Nick Heidfeld the quickest man so far, a 42.779, 8 tenths of a second slower than we saw in the first free practice session as Jaime Alguersuari has come back into the pits. This is Lucas Di Grassi out on circuit, ex-Formula 1 racer, and he's making his way past Jarno Trulli in the Trulli car.
You see Trulli just doing what we were talking about earlier, just slowing down a little bit, and yeah, there's going to have to be some give and take here with the drivers, otherwise we could end up having some problems. So teammates getting into it this morning with the Andretti guys. Charles Peake was a little bit of a dart without feathers in one lap there, held up a bunch of guys.
Di Grassi coming down towards the left-hander of turn 6, and they're out towards the bird's nest on the left-hand side. A yellow flag being waved because Buemi's in the barriers, and he's done the front left of the car there, hasn't he? It looks as though the front left wheel is damaged, so Sebastian Buemi has lost control of the car at that first chicane on the National Stadium Road.
And he hadn't really done a lap yet.
Yeah, he'd done the fastest first sector of anyone, so he was obviously pushing. Di Grassi has come across the line to set the fastest lap time we've had so far, a 1:41.676, but Sebastian Buemi, his session is over.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
In this car,
yeah,
anyway.
exactly. But a big problem for them there, and they're going to be struggling to get that car ready for qualifying, but they'll have it fixed for the race. That was the thing that everybody was worried about, was just connecting with those larger curbs and having that shunt. Jean-Paul Driot and the professor there, Alain Prost. Great to have him here.
They're the two men that have combined to create the e.dams racing team. Jean-Paul Driot bringing the dams element, the successful motorsport team, and I suppose Alain Prost bringing the E element. But
can you imagine having Alain Prost there with you, and the questions you could ask him, and the experience and just the brilliance that he brings along to any team? It would be such an advantage.
It was quite interesting though, because talking to him yesterday, he said it's totally different to when he ran his Formula 1 team, because Formula 1, he had experience, he knew the cars, he knew roughly what was going on, whereas here, he's not getting that involved technically on, but it's much more of an overseeing role than a team principal role.
Yeah, I think in F1 he was always hampered by a lack of budget, wasn't he, his team? I think what he brings here is as much a mindset as anything, and that attention to detail that somebody like Jackie Stewart always brought, and just that understanding of how to win and what it takes to win, and he can bring that to that whole team, and the Dams team as well. And obviously in GP2 right now are just doing a phenomenal job.
Yep, leading the championship in GP2 presently, as we now go on board with Nico Prost. He is the son of Alain Prost, and he's racing in the other e.dams car. He pulls over to the left-hand side. Presumably we're going to see a car flash past in a moment. There we go. Looked like one of the Venturi cars going through on the way down towards the first chicane. Indeed it was Stefan Sarrazin, but it's Lucas de Grassi who set the fastest time. We're seeing any improvements so far in this, or at the moment in this session, because we've still got double waved yellows out at the chicane on the National Stadium Road, and indeed Sarrazin decided to just go straight across because there was marshals in the track.
And Lucas was quicker than this session already than he was this morning, so that shows how much progress has been made.
You were saying before that on a street circuit it's good to sort of have a night's sleep and then come back and attack it fresh. Do you get any sort of element of that from an hour and a half?
I would say not. I mean, maybe a little bit, but tiny percentages. It's going to require some adjustment and drivers, because it is just everything in one day. Everything is crammed in. There is no time to really go away, think about it, and digest it. So it'll keep them on their toes.
Stefan Sarrazin currently 10th quickest at the moment in the Venturi car, as he turns into the penultimate corner at turn 19. He's going to pass Bruno Senna, who's backing off and getting out of the way, and down towards the final corner at turn 20. Another quite a big jump there, and you can see all the tire marks there from where we've had quite a few lockups so far going into that final corner.
Of the ones we've seen, I think Sam Bird wins the lockup contest so far when he was passing the Trulli car in free practice one. He had them both locked up for quite a while there.
Absolutely spectacular stuff from Sam Bird, as he went to the inside of Jarno Trulli, locked both of his front wheels as Bruno Senna comes across the line, and I thought maybe he was backing off to get some space to push it, but he's not running particularly strong, because I suppose with the yellow flag out there's no point in wasting your battery until you're getting some clear air.
No, absolutely. I think he'll just be sitting there waiting for that yellow flag to go away. He was very quick in free practice one, but just got held up by Charles Pic in the last corner there. Otherwise, I think he would have been top of the timesheets there. So expect some good things from him as we keep going.
Lucas de Grassi, we just saw there, quickest man of anyone still for the Abt team, and Abt are very successful, particularly in the German Touring Car Championship, the DTM. 5 DTM titles for them in their history, and they're another squad that when they joined Formula E, everyone sort of went, oh wow, these are some proper teams coming on board. And well, here's another one that you know quite well.
Yeah, exactly. From all over the world, some proper teams showing up, and even things like the Mahindra guys, you think, oh well, you know, we don't have a massive racing pedigree. Then you realise that the Carlin organisation is in there, and so from top to bottom, it's a grid full of really world-class teams. Mahindra
making their first appearance in car racing. They have raced in motorbikes since 2011, as Frank Montani climbs into his second car, and now it looks as though we should be cleared that yellow flag on the exit of turn 6. Yeah, the message has just gone away. We've got green flags on the timing screen, so the cars are free to push now. Out there on the circuit, currently 14th overall, but yet to set a particularly representative lap time. 49.2 is best, a 41.6 is the best for Lucas de Grassi, as Bird now winds his way down Huijing Road.
I'm expecting big things from Sam. I really am. I think he's going to do a good job in the championship, and you know, in testing he was good, but he's pushing hard.
Mercedes Formula 1 test driver for a few years, Sam Bird. He was the GP2 runner-up last season to Fabio Lima, who's actually the reserve driver at Amna Naguri. And it's great that these talented guys have got somewhere high profile to go as well. I mean, a lot of them, a lot of young drivers now are sort of moving to IndyCar because Formula 1 is so difficult to get into, but to have the likes of Sam Bird and D'Ambrosio and Buemi and all these guys who never, okay, some of them did some F1, but not quite to the level that perhaps their talent deserved.
And there's definitely a bottleneck, isn't there, at the top of the sport, and it's you know, drivers are continuing later into their careers now, so that bottleneck just increases, I would say, and a lot of great drivers are not getting the chances maybe they deserve.
Sam Bird out through turn 2, down the straight on Tianjin West Road into turns 3, 4 and 5 as we watch Ho Pin Tung in the Team China garage looking to head out onto the circuit. There's his teammate Nelson Piquet Jr., another man with a lot of experience in Formula One, in NASCAR, in rallycross, in GTs.
Well, it looks like the guys are using the regen to turn it in a little bit right at the end of the braking zone. And just watch Nelson there just as he turned in. See him adjusting the steering. We're going to see a lot of that during the race, a lot of adjustment on the power delivery and the regen.
He comes towards the left-hander of turn 6. Now let's have a look at his telemetry that we get on board with 3% of his battery. That's what that particular element means. The speed in kilometers an hour is relatively self-explanatory as he comes down now towards the bus stop chicane. And you can see the brake force he's putting in as well on the brake meter there on the inside. On the right-hand side, that tall tower is basically saying how much power he is using, because they can change it from a 200 in qualifying all the way down to 150, all the way down to 110 if they really want, but we're likely to see 150, 130 during the race. So he is currently using 140 kilowatts of power, so he's at a sort of reasonable race pace. You'll also see when he gets on the brakes, the regen light flashes up, and you'll see the power in kilowatts, which is currently saying 140, you'll see that go to negative, and that's the power that is coming back into the car through the regenerative braking in the same way that the kinetic energy recovery system works in Formula One. It's recovering the energy from the brakes, essentially. So an awful lot going on there as he comes into the pits.
Big difference from the F1 cars or the World Endurance Championship cars is they have a system that automatically adjusts the brake balance when they're regenerating the power. This car, the Formula E car, doesn't have that. So there's a lot of compromise from the driver here when they're regenerating or not with the brake balance. Really a critical adjustment for any driver. So yeah, we're going to see some interesting moments there.
The testing in Donington, as we look at Catherine Legg in the Amna Naguri car, who's managed to go out actually, which is good, and already gone 5 or 6 seconds quicker than she managed this morning. So things looking a little more positive in the Amlin garage in this second free practice session. But at Donington, there weren't many parts on the circuit where you could use the regenerative braking, and so here, if you're using regen everywhere, does that sort of balance out the brake balance issues? You see what I mean? You're going to have the same feeling at every corner.
Yeah, I would imagine a bit, yes. You know, Donington, I think the Melbourne loop was probably the one they were getting a relative idea. What we've got here, though, is bumpy braking zones. We never had that at Donington, and that's the first time. Bruno's trying hard.
Bruno Senna out on circuit in the Mahindra car. He passed his teammate Karun Chandok, gave him a little thank you, and then got a little bit sideways on the exit of the Hui Chong chicane. Now up towards turn 19, and he's looking pretty quick because he's done the fastest first and middle sectors of anyone in the Mahindra car. Coming down towards the final corner now.
This is what we saw this morning. He definitely has a potential to be right up there.
Here comes Bruno Senna then out of the final corner and across the line. Surely this is going to be the fastest lap we've seen so far in Formula E. A 1:41.341 for Bruno Senna. He goes to the top of the timing screens, 3.5 tenths of a second quicker than Lucas Di Grassi, his teammate, with 13 minutes to go. And Di Grassi second, Heidfeld third, Piquet Jr. at the moment in fourth, with Charles Pic fifth for Andretti.
I mean, the time just goes so quickly.
Yeah.
You know, we're halfway through the session just about here, and or over halfway now, and the guys are just, it's almost over. Oh, there we go, Daniel Ab having a wee moment.
Yeah, front left lock up from him as he comes into the final corner. What sort of sector times has he done so far? He's done personal best, so he might jump up here. He does to third place at 42.172, 8 tenths down on Bruno Senna at the moment. The way qualifying works is it's divided into 4 groups, because to have 20 cars on a street circuit is always a bit of a challenge. So you'll have 4 groups of 5 cars going out at various points throughout the day, and they'll only get 1, maybe 2 flying laps. And so really is getting towards the time where you need to get your qualifying plan honed. But is qualifying as vital in Formula E on a street circuit as in other motorsport forms on a street circuit? Because we're expecting
Oh, there is going to be overtaken, but there's something to be said for starting up front anywhere, isn't there? And it'll hopefully keep you out of trouble too. See Al-Jashwari pushing pretty hard there.
Yep, Jaime Al-Gashwari coming down towards the Hui Chong chicane, and he's currently 11th quickest. He's done a personal best in the first sector. He comes through the second split now and does another personal best. You can see he's a second down, though, on Bruno Senna's time.
What we're seeing there, I think, obviously a massive difference in the times, as much as 7 seconds generally between the first guy and the driver in 18th with Karun. That's because some are running race levels of power, and some have got the wick turned right up for qualifying. So yeah, we'll see it closing up a lot when everybody's on the same power level.
I wonder now, Sebastian Buemi. Well, let's watch Alguersuari across the line. Here he comes. It's going to be somewhere in the 42s, probably a 42.601. So he goes fourth quickest. Sebastian Buemi, who we saw crash out of the session earlier on, he hasn't been able to get back out, and I wonder if he literally hasn't been able to get back from where he crashed out in the, because access around the Olympic Park and a street circuit is always a bit of a challenge.
He might be lost. Yeah. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. It can be very, very difficult to get around, and there's fences everywhere, and yeah, and if he is, I imagine his frustration level is pegging right about now.
There's a look at the standings then. Bruno Senna, the quickest man out there. Here's Oriol Servia in the Dragon Racing car, coming up towards the penultimate corner at turn 19. And that Dragon car in the hands of Servia is currently 11th.
I love the fact that when they go on the power, they step out, that instant torque and the general lack of grip of the Formula E car. You can really see them sliding around. It's pretty cool.
Across the line comes Servia. We're going to have an improvement from him. No, he remains down in 11th place, a 44.0 on that last lap, but he's lapping pretty consistently, so it suggests he's doing some sort of race run trial with 10 minutes to go. Are we going to see drivers hopping out and getting some qualifying trim cars potentially as Charles Pic gets out of his Andretti?
If you're going to do it, times now. There's Michael Andretti standing over there having a look at the monitor. Obviously a man who knows a lot about winning races.
There is Charles Pic having a watch on as we go on board with Bruno Senna as he skips over the chicane and is a bit frustrated with Sam Bird. He's very frustrated with Sam Bird there. Presumably he took the chicane maybe to avoid Bird.
That is the thing. If you're going that slow, you're going to have to watch your mirrors, and there's definitely going to be a lot of frustration after this session. During qualifying, it should calm down a bit with only 5 cars on the track at a time. Big advantage in qualifying is going to be going in that last group, because the track is going to clean up, going to rubber in a little bit more, and there might only be 1 or 2 tenths of a second advantage, but you'll definitely take that. So big advantage to be in the last group in qualifying.
There's Nick Heidfeld out there in the Venturi car. Venturi, as a car company, hold the world record for the fastest ever electric vehicle, hitting 307 miles an hour, which is no mean feat. So they've got a lot of EV experience. There is Sam Bird back in the pits and having a little chat to the engineers. Can't quite make out what he's saying.
It's one of the advantages of Formula E. You can actually have a conversation with your engineer without using an intercom system.
Yeah, the engineer's had to take the headset off his head so he can hear Sam talking to him. Nelson Piquet Jr. has been asked to report immediately to race control, so the Brazilian has been up to something out there, as Charles Pic is now getting strapped into his second Andretti machine to head out onto the track once more. As we see Catherine Legg turning into the left-hander at turn 19, and she's got Takuma Sato and Inaguri cars running line astern on the circuit, although Sato looks like he might be coming into the pits. Legg comes into the final corner, and she's got a lot of a reasonable amount of catch-up to do, because she only managed 12 laps in the first free practice session this morning, whereas the likes of your De Grassis and your Nico Prosts of this world managed 19, so a little bit behind in terms of getting to know the circuit, but she's done a reasonable amount of running so far. Currently 15th overall at 46.1 and 7 laps completed. And then when you think of that, she's going to be going into qualifying with 14 laps under her belt, or and she hasn't had it. It's not been a disastrous morning. Well, Buemi, for example, he did 18 laps today, shunted in this second free practice session, so he's going to go into qualifying having been around the circuit 18 times. It's not very much.
Well, it's not. But for a driver, you're going to, after about 5 laps or something, you should be getting pretty close, and then the margins start coming down, and the gains are smaller and smaller. But every lap at this point is key, and so Buemi will be shaking his head, as I'm sure his bosses will too.
These cars all electric, with batteries supplied by Williams Grand Prix Engineering. The powertrain is a development of the McLaren powertrain that they use in their P1 sports car. Across the line comes Michaela Cerruti then. Currently, well, 15th place. She's just jumped up with a 1:45.489. 4 seconds slower than Bruno Senna at the top, but again, she's no doubt running a more race-orientated simulation at the moment in that Trulli car.
Or possibly not. She just backed off there. All will be revealed, I'm sure, come qualifying, because they're all going to have the wick turned up, aren't they?
Yeah, it's going to be very an entertaining qualifying session as we see Nick Heidfeld turning into the chicane in the Venturi car again. Out through 3, 4 and 5, then up towards 6, the 90-degree left-hander that takes the road and onto the National Stadium road. He's got Bruno Senna that he's closing in on, and Bruno Senna decides to just go straight across at the chicane so he can get out of the way of Heidfeld a little easier. Yeah,
I mean, that was Bruno paying attention there, wasn't it? And some of the drivers are doing it, some aren't. And I think the more races we do, the more everybody will get used to that kind of situation.
Down towards 14 for Nick Heidfeld. Out now onto Huqing Road. Currently 8th quickest Nick Heidfeld. Slower than Bruno Senna. His first sector has been all right, not particularly outstanding. The second sector, again, not superb, and got very close to the exit of the chicane there.
He might have overcooked the entry just a wee bit, and that's what's going to happen as the confidence builds. You're going to think, just take a little bit more on the brakes, come off the brakes a little earlier, and yeah, that's going to happen. So there's an interesting quandary there, because normally with a normal car you would try and get off the brakes and run the speed in the corner, maybe lift on the straight to save fuel and run that speed in that first section. With this, you've got to brake because you've got to use the regen to regenerate the system. So it's going to be a different technique of saving and saving power and how you will drive that.
That will be interesting as we see the Venturi squad in the temporary pit lane garages that are coming to all of the Formula E races around the world, as Ho Pin Tung gets very feisty and very in the barriers.
Oh dear.
And that, I think, is at turn 19. We'll wait and see, but Ho Pin Tung has found his time in the Armco barriers at turn 19. And well, we saw him locking up, and there's just no margin for error around here, is there?
Not a typical street course, there really isn't. We're going to see that all through the Formula E Championship, just no margin. And he locked up a little bit. And I'll just turn in anywhere. Whether he's so out of control by the time he turns in, I don't know. But the result's the same, and it's going to take a bit of work to fix that car.
So let's have a look at this. Down towards 19, Ho Pin Tung. The red flag has come out and just locks the inside front left. And he's nowhere near the apex, and it looked like he sort of just tried to...
I think he was so out of control. I don't think he could slow it down. Unfortunately for him, I just think, yeah, once that locked up, he was already on the limit, and there you see the result, and that's probably going to be the end of the session, unfortunately.
Yep, quite possibly. The red flag has been thrown. The session will not restart, so that is the end of free practice 2 here in the FIA Formula E Championship. And well, Ho Pin Tung had just... It wasn't that last lap, but he was third quickest overall with a 1:41.824. So looking quick, Ho Pin Tung, until he ended up in the wall. But it's this man who was quickest of anyone, Bruno Senna, a 1:41.341 in the Mahindra. And Senna and De Grassi, the top two after free practice 2. But, you know, the likes of... They're the top two, the bottom two, Sam Bird and Sebastian Buemi. So not a particularly representative session. It looked like Sam Bird just did quite slow race runs. That's because he did 11 laps out there.
Hey, he did plenty of laps, and he was so quick this morning and just looked consistently fast. So, and obviously Buemi went off on the out lap. So I expect those two to be up there fighting for the pole position this afternoon.
Ho Pin Tung watching on as everyone has to drive back to the pit lane at the end of this session after he's put it in the Armco barrier on the exit of turn 19. And the Chinese fans will no doubt be disappointed with that. He'll still get to go out in the qualifying session because he has 2 cars, so time is now of the essence for the Team China squad. Get that car prepared for the race coming up later on today, starting at 4 o'clock. The race will start as Nelson Piquet Jr., his teammate, is pushed back into the pit lane, and Piquet Jr. finished that session in 10th place, so 3rd and 10th for Team China. I think they'll be pretty pleased with that. but Hopin Tung won't be very pleased with that. So he looks to get out and inspect the damage. Depends whether it's difficult to see whether he's actually hit the Armco or whether he's gone more into the Tech Pro crash structure.
Yeah, I think either way it's going to have crunched one of the corners. Certainly the right front's probably taken a hit, front wing. But yeah, I mean they can fix it quickly. As long as it's not got back into the floor and stuff like that, it'll be a fairly easy fix. It's maybe not nice to say that the mechanics are probably
go and help them.
Yeah, exactly. Like they'd probably say, I'd like to see you fix it quickly. As I say, I break the cars, don't normally fix them.
Bruno Senna pushed back into the pit lane, then the quickest man of anyone so far in this free practice session and in Formula E in Beijing, a 1 minute 41.341. There's Oriol Servia.
Talking to Tom Brown, used to work with Penske back in the day, a good Scotsman. Been in America for a long time though.
Dragon Racing saw D'Ambrosio finish 8th quickest and Servia down in 15th position. So they're just having a chat with the engineers, and it looks like they're talking about the braking and the sort of instability.
Yeah, he sounds like he's talking about a locking on the rears a little bit when he's when he's using the regen paddle, so they'll probably make a small adjustment to that. And the thing with the regen paddle, you have no adjustment. It's either pretty much on or off. It's not a very adjustable thing, and so they're going to have to make the changes back in the with the computer.
Bruno Senna, the quickest man, 1.341 at the end of free practice 2 here in Beijing. Second quickest Lucas de Grassi, 3.5 tenths of a second behind, with Hopin Tung for Team China Racing third, which will give him and the Chinese fans no doubt some encouragement heading towards qualifying. Frank Montani, fourth quickest for Andretti, with 5th place, the second apt car of Daniel Abt. 6th place for Jarno Trulli, and 7th place going the way of Jaime Alguersuari, with Jerome D'Ambrosio in 8th position, 9th for Nick Heidfeld, and 10th for Nelson Piquet Jr. Charles Pic finishing in 11th, with Nico Prost down in 12th spot, 13th for Karun Chandok, Stefan Sarazan 14th, Oriol Servia 15th, Michele Ceruti in 16th place. The two Amlin Aguri cars, 17th and 18th, Catherine Leggins and Kuma Sato. Sam Bird was out there, did some laps, but only finished down in 19th place. Sebastian Buemi hit the wall on his first flying lap out there, and he finishes down in 20th in the classifications. So that concludes free practice 2 here in Beijing. Next up is qualifying, which is, pretty much a one-lap qualifying session, and you find some drivers can deal with that, some drivers struggle a little bit.
Do you think we'll get 1 or 2? Do you think we'll manage a second?
Well, we'll need to speak to the teams after this. That's going to be the key, but that's certainly something that they would have been looking into. At Donington Park, when they simulated the qualifying session based on they could only get 1 in, sort of 1.5. So here, a shorter circuit, less hills, less sort of medium speed corners.
More regen.
More regen. They might be able to get to him. We'll have to wait and see as Hopin Tung gets a lift back after finishing third in that session on the back of a moped. Still, that's good pace from Hopin, the 2007 German Formula 3 champion.
Very good.
Only less than half a second off Bruno Senna.
It's closing up at the front, isn't it? I mean, how many different teams are on the front?
I was thinking, I think it's 8 of the top 9 are different teams, but I might be wrong. That was just off the top of my head, but it's very, very competitive up there at the top of the order. And it was Bruno Senna in the Mahindra car who managed to come out on top. Top 4 covered by 8 tenths of a second, but I think that'll get closer and closer as the session progresses. They're just putting the barriers back in place from where Sebastian Buemi had his moment right at the start of this session. So Bruno Senna, the quickest man of anyone in this second free practice. We can hear from him now. He's with Nikki Shields.
Here with Bruno Senna, wearing a very attractive hat, but fastest in P2.
Yeah, not bad. In P1 we had the pace to go fastest as well. Just as everybody saw on the onboards, I had a bit of traffic on the last corner. But yeah, P2 was also difficult with traffic. We managed to get 1 clear lap in. Then after that, there was always a bit of traffic. But the car, the track is very tricky, so easy to make mistakes. So I'm sure everybody's keeping that few percent left to the end, to qualifying. But I have different things, and I tried few experiences. Someone went wrong, someone right, and lap time is there. So hopefully qualifying can be there as well.
As you say, it's a very busy track. You're going to be looking for some space during qualifying.
Yeah, fortunately qualifying we have less cars on the track, which will make it easier. But you never know what's going to happen. So you need to make sure that you put a banker lap in early on and try to do it again. But if you don't get any laps in, you're going to be in trouble.
Thanks, Bruno.
Bruno Senna, who enjoyed a day out with Karun on the Great Wall of China on Wednesday, picked up a hat as well. Might have been Thursday actually, but they went tobogganing down it as, and I don't know who won that race actually. That'll be interesting to find out. We can now hear from Jaime Alguersuari, the 7th overall. He's with Nicky.
Jaime, you finished 7th in practice 2. Looking good for qualifying.
Yeah, we're testing loads of things really. We don't have much track time, so we're trying to understand how's the car going to be on the race. Then we tried a few laps in qualifying, but they were not enough. So I think we do have a good basis, but it's just everything is a question mark. At the moment, our target is to finish the race, to understand and to see how the car is behaving during this race, especially energy management, and then we will head to the next race. But at the moment, it's to finish.
Thanks. Good luck, Jaime.
A lot of the teams and drivers have been saying out this weekend, oh, we just don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen. And you know, I get that a lot when I interview, you know, teams and drivers. They say, oh, yeah, we don't know. Usually they're lying, but you get the impression this weekend that actually there is a big unknown coming up.
Yeah, of course there is. It's all new, isn't it? And that is new for the cars, new, the concepts new, the tracks new, and everybody is just learning as they go. And so when they actually say we just want to finish, there is a certain degree of that. And then when they look like they're going to finish, they're going to want to win, obviously.
A couple of fans for Trulli we just saw. Then we've got Sam Bird fans and Nick Heidfeld fans and Brazilian fans. So great to see so many people here just for the second free practice session. And you can see how, I mean, we're in proper downtown Beijing, so it gets very, very busy. We can now hear from Alain Prost from the e.dams team. He's in the pits with Nicky.
I'm here with co-founder of e.dams team, Alain Prost. Alan, Sebastian Buemi, he's damaged his hull. Can you just explain to us what actually happened out on track?
Well, very simple. I don't know exactly. I think he went a little bit over the curb. He was pushing quite hard and set up the best time on the first partial time. He already had a little crash this morning, so he's really hot on this track, but it's part of the game. But on the other side, we can see you know, on only one day of practicing, how difficult it is if you have a problem like this. I hope it's not going to be too bad for the car. We can still repair it. We still use one car for qualifying, and we should be okay for the rest this afternoon. But it's really marginal, and we have a little problem on this Nicolas' car on the battery or something. So we can see that it's very fragile. You know, everything goes. You have to avoid all the problems.
There's not much room for error on these street circuits. Do you think they've had enough time to practice ahead of qualifying?
It will be the same for everybody. I think that's why it was very important to do the maximum mileage, but that's part of the game. You know, we knew that it would be difficult on a track like this. We know that's going to be marginal also for qualifying and for the rest, because we can see a lot of mistakes and errors again, and we hope that the rest will be okay, because it's the first one, and we all hope that it's going to be better. But it's also good to see the drivers, you know, pushing hard, and everybody is saying that it's quite nice to watch from outside, you know, locking the wheels, and the car is moving, and they are not disappointed at all by the noise, and that is a positive point.
Well, the eyes are certainly on this race. Good luck. Thank you.
The great thing about Alain Prost is, you know, I've seen, you know, you see hundreds of interviews with him down the years when he was team principal of F1, but he really seems to be enjoying himself. You know what I mean? He really seems to be happy, and he's smiling, talking to Nicky. It's great to see him and his team performing so strongly here at Beijing at the first round of the FIA Formula E Championship. We've just finished free. Look back. It's about to get underway. Takuma Sato was the man, sat in the Amninaguri garage. He and Catherine Legg, the two drivers. Daniel Abt getting set. Abt in the end finished very quick, third quickest overall, but the session wouldn't end exactly how he would have wanted.